Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr. This is episode 416 of CryptoBiography, and it's part 2 of The Herd and the Army. And here we go. Tarve wasn't sure what to do. He reached out and took her hand, and she gripped his and looked over at him and smiled. They wandered out of town in the direction of the sea. It was a few miles away, but if they went about halfway, they would be able to see it. In fact, the surf, though not particularly strong on this side of the island, could sometimes be heard at night if there was no wind, as there was not tonight. Tarve strained his ears, but he couldn't detect it yet. The horns of the moon were falling to the horizon. Marta apparently didn't know what to say either, because a few times she looked over at Tarve, but didn't utter a word. The path continued, mostly straight, over the hillocks and mounds of the grasslands. It was well worn, both by minotaurs on foot and also from the wagons they pulled. Because there were no trees nearby, there was just enough light to see the path despite the nearly new moon. Tarve heard a noise. At first, he thought it was the first rumbling of the surf, just on the edge of hearing. But then it got louder, and it didn't quite sound like surf. It sounded like heavy breathing and the feet of a minotaur in a hurry. Tarve couldn't imagine why someone would be tearing up the path towards town this time of night. Was someone injured and needing help? Soon they could see the bull, his horns just slightly reflecting the pale moonlight, but his face was in shadow. Tarve didn't know who it might be. The bull got close to them and slowed, apparently trying to make out who he was seeing. "Do you need help?" Tarve asked. "No," the bull replied. His breath was coming in gasps. He had clearly overexerted himself. I have to get to town. Warn everyone." He put his hands on his thighs and gulped air for a few seconds. Then he lifted his head and started his run again. Tarve and Marta trotted alongside him. He couldn't recognize this minotaur, though he knew a lot of folks around as they came to the forge. But he'd been there less than a year. Some folks hadn't needed bronze services yet. Still, this likely meant the bull was from the coast. If he'd been closer, Tarve was sure he would have recognized him. "Take my arm," Tarve said. "And mine," Marta added. The bull was beyond pride in his exhaustion. He nodded and took their arms. They hustled back along the cart path, back to town as quickly as the bull could manage. Tarve wanted to ask what the problem was, but clearly the minotaur had no breath to spare. So he bided his time, knowing the answer would come soon enough. They got back to town, and Tarve waited with the panting minotaur while Marta ran ahead to get help. She returned with several of the town elders who were hurrying as best they could up to them. When he saw them, the new minotaur, who had only partially regained his breath, managed to say, "The humans, they're back." All the minotaurs looked at each other. "They landed, and one of them spoke our language. This is our land now," their emissary shouted at us from afar with a bullhorn. That seems strange to Tarve and to the others. "How do they know our language?" Marta asked. "I've always been told that the humans, the first time they came, fought us like savages and did not speak to us, but simply attacked until we forced them off our island. No minotaur went with them when they left over a century ago. Somehow they've acquired our language. Maybe they think some diplomacy will make us roll over for them," the elder Kane mused. "We'll fight them like last time and drive them off again," the elder Balva said. "That's just the thing," the minotaur said, still puffing. "We gathered together and charged them. But they have a new weapon. Instead of bows, they leveled hollow metal sticks at us. They roared and belched fire and threw some sort of stone. Even our largest warriors were dropped when they were hit in the head or chest, and our shields did nothing." Kane had a grave look in his eye. "What was the result of the battle?" "So far as I know, of the ones who attacked, I'm the only survivor." "And the others who live at the seaside?" "I don't know. They weren't in the battle, but the humans could be doing anything to them now." "We can't wait," Balva said. "If they march tonight, they could find us before morning. We have to start scouting now and if possible attack, or perhaps draw them away from here. I'll do it, Tarve said. Truth be told, he was already quite tired. He usually had to go to sleep very early because he had to get up early, but he knew that if he did this, his exhaustion would vanish, at least for a while. I should come, Marta said. I appreciate it, but no, Tarve said. You should help warn everyone and make sure everyone's okay. I can do this. He put a reassuring hand on her shoulder and looked into her lovely brown eyes. He winked once, then turned and made his way towards the shore. Minotaurs, through their orally transmitted stories, remembered the human invasion of a little over 100 years before. Tarve hadn't thought too hard about these stories, but now on his way to distract and delay some unknown number of them, he thought about those stories a lot. One thing he remembered was that the humans learned to fight the Minotaurs during the daytime. This is because their vision was roughly equal to Minotaurs in daytime, but far inferior to the Minotaurs at night. Even now, with no moon, the horns had already sunk beneath the horizon, he was running along a path at a good jog with no difficulty. Soon, he could see lights in the distance. He stopped and looked more closely. The lights were moving. These were torches, or something like them, being held by the humans. They were closing in, and he needed to be ready. And that's the end of the story for this week. Hope you're enjoying it. I'm enjoying writing it. If you have any comments or questions about this episode or previous episodes, cryptobiography@gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook or Blue Sky. And thanks for listening. Words and music copyright 2025, Brandon Starr, all rights reserved. Characters and events are fictional, fictionalized, or satirical.